I've always said that triathlon is a wonderful adult sport. Most of us were competitive at something when we were in high school, college, whatever. And that spirit doesn't leave you, just because you stop playing in high school or college, and you want to do something. And that's how I got involved. It's just I was looking for something, wanted to be really fit. And it looked like triathletes were really strong and, very fast and lean and all that. And I wanted to be a part of it. So that's how I got involved. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, before we get jamming here, for all of our listeners, I'm just gonna read off a little bit of your background, Mark. Okay.
Sure.
All right. So Mark is a highly accomplished triathlete and coach with more than 25 years of experience. As an athlete, Mark has achieved success as an Ironman 70.3 World Championship finisher and an 8-time finisher in the Ironman USA Lake Placid with a PR of 10 hours, 59 minutes, and 40 seconds. Other career highlights include 9-time finisher in the S.O.S Triathlon, escape from Alcatraz Qualifier, Westchester Triathlon, and he is a 9-time USAT All-American. Mark is the founder of Wilson Endurance Sports. He is a nationally recognized coach and a race director for the past 25 years, creating 20 different races throughout New York and Connecticut. So I'm thrilled to be chatting that. The Co-Movement Gym podcast is supported by Native Path Supplements and Lombardi Chiropractic. Mention this podcast or click on the links in the episode description for a nice discount on us. The big thing would like to start off with today is, how did you start or come up with the idea or become inspired to create races for other people?
Wow. It was really by mistake. I swear to God, it was. I started a club in the year 2000, the Hudson Valley Triathlon Club, because I lived in that area at that time. And so we had a 4-race summer sprint series on Wednesday nights at a beautiful lake in the Hudson Valley. And it was very popular. It drew from Connecticut, New York City, Albany, and so on, Saratoga Springs, and so on. And it became very popular. I remember one of the athletes turned to me and said, because I raced at the time, I was race directing and racing. So, and there's only a few other people on the planet who do it that way. And with good reason. It's exhausting. So this guy said to me, why don't you direct races? You're really good at it. And I said, no way. It is so much work. I just said, nope, never going to do it. It's so much work. There's no way you could ever get me to do it. Well, here we are, now with Wilson Endurance Sports and doing, actually we scaled it back because we wanted to really do well at the events that we are good, are attractive in regards to lots of athletes and so on. So we scaled it down to, I think, 14, 17 races, something like that throughout the season. And I saw that there was a need for good race directing. And there are lots of race directors out there, from 5K all the way to Ironman, of course. And I just felt like, man, I think I could do this. I think I can actually earn a living at it, in addition to my coaching and running the clubs. And my wife, Tanya, is the best administrator you'd ever want on your team. And so the two of us just tackled it and said, let's do it. Let's expand. And we did it. Oh my goodness. It just took off. Still today, we have people calling us practically every week saying, could you do an event here, do an event there? And we're like, no, we can't. We're just too old. And I'm not saying I'm that old. I'm just saying I don't want to kill myself race directing. I really want to live a quality life. I want to do quality events. And I think if you do too many, you get burnt out. It's so large. And if you really want to do well, you've got to dial in on the details. And if you don't do that, you're asking for trouble, really.
Yeah, I don't know how you do the number of events that you do. We host a trail run in Brookfield, New York. It's a 50K, a 15K, and a 5K. Wow. And it's on the state lands. We started it. We've done 2 years. We're going into our 3rd year. And it's a tremendous amount of work for, what most people see as like a day of racing is about 6 months of like marketing and coursework and permits and so for you, you're multiplying that by 15, right? It's a year-round gig, probably planning, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yes, it is. In fact, I've had municipalities and communities complain to me that I was actually reaching out to them too early. You
Yeah.
know, I want to get on top of it for next year. When the race is over, or actually before the race is over, I'm already telling them when we're planning to come back next year so that they've got it on their calendar. And, the New York State DOT and the officers that we have to engage, they're like, too early. Don't talk to us now. Wait until January 2nd, And,
Yeah.
oh, God, there's Wilson again bugging us,
I had the same response, Mark, last year. The Monday after, so 2 days after our race, I got a hold of the DEC. I was asking for next year's permit, and I was lining up all of this because, like, while it's fresh in your mind,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you have a checklist to go over to make sure things are prepped and reserved for next year. Like, the last thing I want to do is start marketing a race and then I go to get a permit, or there's something that I didn't get approved for and now I've got to backtrack.
I do. Unfortunately, I do. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's, being a race director is a real gamble. It's a very, very, very risky job, occupation. And that's why you better be good at it. You just better be good at it. There's so many things that can happen. And on top of all that, you have to deal with people too. And that can be quite a challenge. There's all types of folks out there, and God bless all of them. But you have to be able to deal with whatever's going to be thrown at you, and you are going to make mistakes. You're also going to have successes, but no matter what, they're going to point out mostly the mistakes,
Yep.
or at least what they consider to be mistakes, right? And all they're thinking about, and again, it's not their fault. They're thinking about themselves.
Correct.
And what they want out of the event and out of their experience. They have no idea. My wife and I talk about this all the time. They're ignorant, and that's not a negative. If they are ignorant, they have no idea what goes into it. Like you said, it's a one-day event for them. It's a 365-day event for us, period. That's it.
Yeah. But, it's funny you mentioned that because, you could have like 100 great things go right all day, and one thing messes up. Someone gets really hurt, or they go a wrong way on a course and they chew you out, or a volunteer didn't show up that stressed out everybody up, right? It could be 100 great, or it could be 1,000 great things, especially with the size events that you guys do. One thing can really put a damper on the day.
It can. And as the organizers, you can't let it bring you down. You can't let it bring you down no matter what. You've got to keep it positive. You've got to keep it going. The show, it's a show, right? And I always joke how that it's a circus. You come to town, you set the circus up, you tear it down, and you leave town, and things happen, and the show must go on. You have to continue. We can't dwell on little things, and usually they can be taken care of very quickly. You run out of gels at an aid station, so you get somebody to go deliver whatever. Just little things that never happens for us, by the way. But those are things that happen at races, and you can't let it bum you out, and you can't let the people's negativity post-race bum you out either. Especially when you've got hundreds of people signing up the next day for next year's event. That's a positive thing. You got to focus on the positives, and it's not that you ignore things that could be improved. Always, always, always can be improved. I don't care who you are. The race can be improved. It can be improved. And you look for the things that will change the experience for most people first, and then you just keep dialing in every year. That's the beauty of going back to venue year after year after year. You really get dialed in. Boy, I tell you, it's such a great feeling going into this year, by the way, because every single race, we've done every single race now before. There is nothing new except for that it's new.
Yeah.
Right? Every race you do, just because you've ridden your bike before doesn't mean something's going to go wrong, right? You can flat, you can,
Yeah.
So it's a very challenging job. It's a fun job. I don't complain. I will complain, but it's not complaining. It's because I'm tired usually, or just a little burnt out or whatever, and you just do the best you can all the time.
Yeah, it's you're managing hundreds of people's emotions,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't realize that till the first event we did. I think we had 38 runners for our first year, which I thought was good. And then about 20 volunteers and then spectators, right? And EMT. So, I'm managing probably me and the other two co-directors, about 100 personalities. And,
Absolutely.
and last year was double that. And so it is a lot. I love it, but it's a tremendous amount of it's about a 16-hour day.
What?
uh I get up at 4 a.m. to drive the course in the pitch dark to make sure every single sign is where it needs to be, because I lose sleep that a sign's going to tip over, and then the whole crew is going to blast by, the race is going to, and I just have these weird thoughts with that.
That's excellent. You've got to be thinking that.
Yeah.
How can I make sure that this is going to go right, even if I don't have any volunteers? That's my standard that I go by, because it's getting so hard to get volunteers. And congratulations to you for doubling your event. That's incredible.
Thanks. Yep.
That's unheard of. So good for you. You're doing the right things. But boy, you have to set up a course, in my opinion. And, my wife and I talk about becoming people who certify race directors, but I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do that. But it's, you have to have the mindset that no one's going to help me. How can I make sure? What can I do to make sure that nothing goes wrong on this day for the course, for the 8 stations, whatever? Like, I've had people just not show up. Volunteers don't show up, and you can't get mad at them. What if their kid got sick and they just can't come?
Yeah.
It's not their fault. So you have to be prepared for that you're not going to get the support that has been promised to you. And then maybe that's harsh, but at least I'm never disappointed.
Yes.
I'm never disappointed.
Yeah.
Because I expect that to happen.
Yeah.
I am prepared for that to happen.
Yeah.
You've got to be. If you're not, you're in denial. It's just going to happen to you.
It's exact. Yeah. It's, with our gym here in the company, we're in our 15th year. And now when problems come up, it's like, I almost say like, yes. I think I heard Jocko Willick, the Navy SEAL, say that one time in a podcast. With problems, you just say yes and you nod. Like, at this point, it's expected and there's no one to blame. Like, you're the tip of the spear and you fix it. That's
right.
that.
You fix it as quick as you can. And, sorry about that. I'm going to take care of it. And, and you take action as quickly as you can. Right.
Yeah.
And, it can be a thankless job, but more than ever, I do. Like you, I get people thanking us for what we do. And it feels great. It feels great. Honestly, when people recognize the hard work that you're putting in, and it's a philosophy of mine that I'm getting better at my job when no one can notice that I'm working hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the best compliments I got at a race a couple years ago was someone came up and said, "Man, Mark, you make this look easy." That was the greatest compliment ever. Because if I look like I'm having a great time, and I am, but there's a lot to think about, as you know, and you could be worried about a million things. But if I'm having a good time and I'm walking around talking to people, that my job is done and that things are secure as best as possible.
Yeah. Oh, that's refreshing to hear this come from you. So, let's. We got a ton to get to here. I just want to review quick, because there could be listeners that don't really know about triathlon, the distances, the events. So let's just go over that quick. A sprint triathlon, Mark, what's the distances with that?
The common distance is a 750 meter swim, a 20K bike ride, which is 12.4 miles, and then a 5K run. So that's the known distances now. And those distances are in relation to the Olympic distance because it's double that distance. So 1,500 meters, 40K, which is 24.8 miles, and then a 10K run. So those are the standards that USA Triathlon and the world is recognizing as common distances. Can a sprint triathlon be different from those? Absolutely. And in the beginning, that's the way it was. You just got what you got, And Olympic distance, if you get a race that is a little bit off from the numbers that Olympic distance is representing these days, they just call it intermediate. We have one of those for the Cassadaga Man here on Labor Day weekend in Cassadaga, New York, south of Buffalo. So we just call it intermediate because the distances are a little bit different than Olympic. Then you move up and you've got what's called the long course triathlon. And we have two of those. One is Cassadaga Man, one is Onondaga Man near Syracuse. And that consists of a 1.2 mile swim, 56-mile bike ride, and a 13.1 mile run. That's what, Ironman 70.3, that's the common name for it these days, but it's actually called long course because there are companies that offer non-Ironman branded events. And then, of course, you've got the Ironman distance. There are independent companies that offer these distances, which is 2.4 mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, and a 26.2 mile run. And yes, it's all done on one day.
Yeah, that's the famous Ironman, right? That's the Ironman distance. Yeah. Wow. Well, and then there's two other things. So you have a unique event, Delta Double.
Yes.
So I'm gonna give that a whirl this year.
There you go.
How that'll go, we're gonna find that out. But can you explain to listeners what that event is?
Yeah, we actually discovered, since we had two distances mostly at several of our events, the sprint distance and the Olympic distance, I start them separately. The sprint usually goes first, and then the Olympic distance after that. We just decided, hey, why not let athletes do both and start them enough or far enough apart that athletes could finish the first one, quickly get changed back into their wetsuit and go again. So they'll do the sprint, swim, bike, run, get back into the wetsuit, put their goggles on, put their swim cap on, and then start the Olympic distance right after that. So it's what's called a really good triathlon brick, meaning you do back-to-back workouts, whether swim, bike, or bike to run, but this is full-on triathlon, 2 in a row, different distances. Delta Lake, by the way, you picked the best one. It's our fastest course. It's our flattest course. So good choice. And you're going to love it. You're going to love it. You have to plan out and expend your energy very carefully. That second race, which is double the distance of the sprint, you've got to be ready for that. So it's almost like training for a long course triathlon, but a little different because you can still maintain speed training while preparing.
Yeah. My long-term goal is S.O.S. And so I've been following that race for quite some time. Actually, before I got into triathlon at all, I was fascinated by that event. And then weirdly, like Brandon Roman does our race, and then I meet him, and then he said, "Oh, he was 5 days out from doing S.O.S. What's that?" But Brandon said to do the Delta Double, see how that goes. And then that'll be a good tune-up to see where you stand to go into a half Ironman. Because I think you have to do a half Ironman to qualify for S.O.S. Is that true?
Correct. You have to do a long course triathlon prior to the going and applying for it because they just want to know you can handle the distance.
Sure.
I think you have to do under 7 hours and 20 minutes or something like that, which is very doable. You'll be fine.
Yeah. I did the Olympic last year in 2:36. Which was 13 minutes faster than my first year. So I was happy about that. So let's see, the last event here, Aqua Bike. Explain to listeners what that event is.
Well, what's happened over the years is people get injured, they can't run. And so USA Triathlon introduced this event where people just swim and bike. And now it's a national and international wonder. I mean, it's really become a great alternative for people who cannot run anymore for various reasons, whether it's replacing knees, hips, or torn something and they're injured for a short period of time. I mean, I have a lot of friends who just compete in aquabike now and don't bother with the run for various reasons. And it's a legitimate competition. They go as hard as heck and they're fast. So it's just a great option.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
no,
it can be applied at every distance. Mostly, I'm not sure actually if there is aquabike for the full distance yet. I haven't actually crossed that. I mean, maybe the Peasant Man in Penn they might have it. I don't know for sure, but
Mhm.
why not? Yeah,
Well, yeah, that'd be 2.4 swim and then 112 bike, right?
that's correct. Yeah,
Yeah, it's still a heck of a day.
would still hurt. Yeah,
Yeah. Let's shift gears here and talk about your triathlon resume. It's quite impressive. What training mistakes? I'm just curious, Mark. What training mistakes have you made along the way, and that you've learned from?
yeah, yeah. Let's start with the highlights. Yeah, you know, first of all, thank you for even asking. I don't like talking about this stuff. I rarely do. Usually, we talk about it just because of promotions to get business. Um, I did well. I don't really compete that much anymore. I'm more focused on creating events. So, but when I was competing competitively and pushing hard, I think the one mistake that I made was I didn't go long enough for the full distance triathlon. I discovered by mistake or by realization that I got more fit after the event happened. And so I decided to change up my own training and also change the way I was training athletes to prepare for those. Most people do not want to go the actual distance prior to the event, let alone over distance. They don't want to do it. And that's just an issue that I think is an issue facing long course triathlon these days, but that's another topic. So that was one of the things I decided to start doing longer bricks. So 100-mile bike ride, 112-mile bike ride, and then a 20 to 24-mile run to prepare myself for the day. That distance was going to prepare my mind, obviously my body, and also I would be testing nutrition. You don't know what you want to eat at that point.
Totally.
You're guessing. You have no idea what you're going to want. Even if you practice it, even if you practice, okay, I did Coke at this mile, and then I did a gel in this mile, and then a candy bar at this mile, a Pop-Tart at that mile. But when on race day, it's out the window.
Yeah.
You don't even know, So I made this rule that what I'm going to do is I'm going to get sugar, water, and salt into my body all day long in small amounts often.
Yep.
And that did the job because I was covering the three elements that are needed when going long. Whether you're racing it or just doing the distance, you're going to come into this. You're going to come up against the lack of sugar, water, and salt. Because when an ambulance comes to a scene, when they arrive, the first thing they do is what? They put an IV in you.
Yep.
That IV has sugar, water, and salt. The reason why they do that is they know that if they put that in you right then, you are now going to be in a better state for healing and recovery than you would if you didn't have that going in you. So we can't have IVs on race courses. They haven't allowed that yet. So I just said, okay, sugar, water, and salt, little bits all day long. And that helped me to improve my experience. I could then go longer without cramping, without bonking, able to do simple math, right?
Yep.
You understand what I'm talking about. Once you go beyond 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, unless you've gone there, you don't know what's going to happen.
We saw this the 2 years we've done the 50K trail run there. There's always a group that are rookies. And we have seen some spectacular crashes. I'm talking year one, we had a guy, phenomenal athlete. He's a sub 60-minute Boilermaker runner. So he's very, very fast, young kid. But he had never done anything over a Boilermaker, and he went to try our 50K with almost 5,000 feet of climbing. No. And he held the lead for 22 miles. He held the lead.
Wow.
And then the tank went to empty. And it's like full body cramping, throwing up, nausea, couldn't keep fluids down, right? You know the cycle.
Oh, yeah.
And so he did finish. Obviously, he didn't win. I think he walked the last 3 or 4 miles, and he had a heart of a lion, right? But yeah, that fueling piece, unless you are in those hours, right, you have no idea whether
Right.
you need 30 grams of sugar every 20 minutes, maybe every 30 minutes. Maybe at hour 5, your stomach starts rejecting whole food and you need only gel. You
Right.
don't know.
No, you don't
Yeah.
know. I always say this is the one mystery that still exists today, the actual nutrition part, because
Yeah.
so unique to the athlete, unique to the moment. Temperature. Is it cold? Is it hot? Is it windy? Is it hilly? Is it flat? There's just so many factors,
Yeah.
and there's no way around personal experience. You gotta go there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know we're still on mistakes, and I'm sure I've made others, and I'll think of them as we're talking here. I want to talk quickly about this Catherine Switzer, who was the first female to run Boston. I recall reading that she was running 30-mile long runs prior to Boston. Now, there was serious pressure on her, right?
Right.
To be the first one, they didn't believe women could even run that far and so on. I mean, now look at Ann Trayson running, almost beating the men, going for these long runs. And it's getting smaller and smaller, the window between male and female long course running. But she went over distance. And this was one of the mistakes that I made. That's the point here, is that I didn't go over distance enough to really get there. For instance, I didn't qualify for Kona. I was 30 minutes too slow. 30 minutes too slow, And if I had prepared that, if I had gone longer and faced the demons, really, face the pain, face the demons, face the reality, I think I would have done better. I'm very satisfied with what I did. To go into 10 hours at Lake Placid or any Ironman course is a very high accomplishment for most mortals.
For
And
sure.
so, I mean, I'm not the most gifted in the world of athletes, and I'm not the worst, but I did the best I could at the time, and there we are.
Most people know that staying hydrated is essential to nearly every bodily function, but 75% of Americans still do not consume enough fluid daily. As we age, bodily changes make staying hydrated even harder, especially without artificial additives or excess sugars. That's where Native Path comes in with extra help. Native Path's Hydrate is not just another drink mix. It's a thoughtfully designed formula packed with BCAAs and all 9 essential amino acids to help with muscle recovery and overall vitality. Plus, it's completely sugar-free and 100% natural. With their Native Hydrate product, you can fuel your body with essential electrolytes at the cellular level for overall vitality. Unlike other hydration drink mixes that are designed for marathon runners and contain upwards of 1,000 milligrams of sodium, Native Hydrate contains just 230 milligrams of sodium for optimal daily hydration. It's free of artificial flavors, sugars, and dyes. It's only 5 calories per serving, and every order comes with a 360-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free. Visit nativehydrate.com/co-movement to see what Native Hydrate could do for your health. Again, that is nativehydrate.com/co-movement.
Yeah, I think that was probably the biggest mistake I made. I mean, others, the stupid mistakes, going too fast too soon.
Yeah,
You see it all the time, whether it's a 1-mile run or a 5K or a long course triathlon. People go too hard, usually on the bike, and then they can't run well. I mean, I see it over and over and over. I really was not a runner. I'm a cyclist by just it. Nature gave me cycling legs, and the swimming I had to work so hard at. The running, I made it happen. I literally made it happen. I ran every day. I did speed work, and I'm 6'1" and 200 pounds right now, so I'm not a small body. But at the time, I thought I was small, but I wasn't, because I was running so much that I didn't think I was a big guy or a big framed guy. But that's the amount of running that you have to do to make sure you can still be good, and then hold back on the bike. My whole focus was hold back on the bike, feed myself, eat and drink, so that I can run well.
Yeah.
And my goal was always to have my swim was always my worst rank. Then my bike was my next best. And the running, I wanted to make sure that the running was my best ranked of the three sports. And that's how I gauged my success. If I ran higher in the rankings, that's how I knew I did it right.
Wow, that's a unique perspective because in the beginning, for me, it was the exact opposite. I was the best at swimming and then biking and then the worst at running. But this whole last year, I've dedicated a ton of time to running. And my running, my 5K went, or I'm sorry, my 10K went from like 58, 59 minutes to 47.
Nice job.
And that's just in a year. And it's just, but I put a lot more time in that. I swam a lot less because what's 5 minutes, like what's five, if I swim 37 minutes or 32 minutes, like what, in the water, yeah, the 32 is a lot faster than 37, but it doesn't matter in the whole rest of the day.
Not really. I've coached swimmers to do triathlon. And this one guy held the breaststroke record at Cortland for 19 or 20 years or something. And he was the best. And still today, he has never lost a swim in a triathlon. He's never lost a swim. Isn't that amazing? Still today. And he's 58 years old.
Sure.
And this guy's awesome, a former New York State trooper. And when I first met him, he was massive. His shoulders were huge, right? He's same height as me, probably heavier at that time. And I just said, Art, you got to run more. And if we take a body and a half off of you, you're going to be very dangerous. I coached him. He ended up beating me. It's always an honor to have your athletes beat you. I hate them all, but
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I'm curious now, like you said, you're not racing anymore, but you're still training at some level. Like, tell me about a week for you, like strength training, bike run, swim. What are you dabbling with now?
Oh, goodness. Well, the thing is, strength has become fun because now I'm a big guy, right? Strength training, that's something that I came into late in life. And so that was something that I got doing 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and was consistent and so on. The running certainly took more of a back seat where, 3 miles every other day, occasional 6 to 9 mile long run just because I can. And then the cycling is just for pure enjoyment with my wife. We got her an e-bike, and I used to, when she had her road bike, I'd be waiting for her at the hills. Now she waits for me at the top of the hills.
Sure.
So, we ride anywhere from 20 miles to 88 miles.
Yeah.
And that's just for enjoyment, right? There's no speed involved. Where we live, there are tons of hills. So we are constantly climbing, which I love. I believe in hills, always have. If you want to be great at running and cycling, you got to go to the hills. You've got to.
Yep. Yeah, so that's good volume still. 3 days a week strength training, and it sounds like maybe 15, 20 miles of running and then the occasional fun bike. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, and the swimming, that's just extra too, right? There's about 1,500 to 2,100 of yards of swimming in the local college pool. So
yeah, same with me. Yeah. Okay. Let's shift gears again to your coaching services. You coach a lot of athletes. I'm really curious, what areas do you feel that most athletes can spend more time focusing on?
Oh, goodness. Well, it usually boils down to their life and what they have available. Most people have good control over their biking because they can have a bike at home, Peloton or a trainer or Wahoo, something like that. But I push people to do more running, just like you just said. If they don't run, that sport, which comes third in the sport of triathlon, swim, bike, run, it's going to be really painful. So I urge them, and this takes months to convince them of this, months, right? Especially if they don't like running, like all the swimmers. Like Art he didn't want to run more That's what made him great, right? Instead of running longer, running more, he kept his swimming up. I encouraged him to swim less, but he didn't listen, and he kept his swimming up. And I guess I was wrong there because he's still the champ. But he got so much better as a triathlete, right? He always won the swim. People passed him on the bike, and they just demolished him in the run, and then he just turned that around. So I encourage people to run more, run more, run more, and they can be resistant or not. But if they do it, we always have better success because they're lighter, they've run more than they ever have before, and they're more prepared. They're just more prepared physically. If I've never known someone to be a bad triathlete because they were a good runner. A runner can learn to swim, they can learn to bike, and then they turn into a great triathlete. A friend of mine, Alex, he was a collegiate runner, 32-minute 10K runner, pretty darn fast, right? Yeah, became an All-American triathlon. Yeah. So,
wow.
yeah, it's just instant. So I encourage people to run more, and it's hard, yes, but productive.
Sure. Yeah, no, it makes sense. How about nutrition? Like, do you feel that a lot of people have their nutrition? I don't mean race day nutrition. I just mean like every day. Do you feel like you need to help people with that, or are they pretty dialed, or are they totally lost on that?
Great question. I usually never bring up the topic. I never address the topic. I say we can deal with nutrition, and then I leave it alone and let them lead me to it, because life nutrition is so emotional that I don't mess with it unless they bring it up. If they bring it up, then I start to talk about, okay, well, what are you eating? What's going on? How much weight do you want to lose? What are you putting into your body? And then of course, what's your activity level? Calories, it's math, right? You're going to burn some, you got to get some back in, and it's just math. And then also the quality of the nutrition is a factor. Once you get dialed in, the quality is really important for general health.
Yeah.
I mean, just because you're a good athlete doesn't mean you're healthy necessarily.
So true.
I mean, oh my gosh. So, it's a fine balance. It's very tricky, especially with women. I have to say, they're so sensitive, and God bless them. There's a lot of pressure on women about weight and so on. And it's so awful. I really feel bad for them, honestly. I can't, I try so hard to understand what they're going through. And it's practically impossible, because as a man, you have 15% less body fat just because you're a man.
Yep.
And so you're leaner all the time. Guys who are fat and out of shape can still look great, and they're not worried about it. And, they don't care what their image is and all that. There's high pressure on women to lose weight and so on, and to look a certain way. And it's disturbing and just too bad, because there's just so many great people out there who could do great things if they wanted to, but they're terrified about their image and what's going on in the world.
Yeah, you and I could do a whole separate podcast on that. We take a similar approach too, because food is like religion or government conversations sometimes, right?
Oh,
So
God.
we don't, we have coaching staff that can help you at a very high level, but we let them know that. And then what happens generally is, once a rapport is built, and then they are more open about real goals, whether they're, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, run faster, look better, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It a lot of times leads to food, right? Because like when you're looking at the pyramid of performance, food is at the bottom. It's the biggest piece, right? For almost everybody. And so at some point we start that, and some people want to dive in much faster and more aggressive, and other people, it's like, we'll go from 5 sodas to 3 sodas a day, and let's start there. And if you can do that, then we're going to move forward. So you got to be really careful, because I think that like the whole dieting world and this whole aggressive nutrition world is why 99% of people fail constantly with their nutrition goals, because they do a 30-day fix. But the 30-day fix is 82% different from what you're used to doing day to day. And it's going to work because you're not happy over those 3 days. And
Correct.
yeah, sure, you'll lose 8 pounds and 6 pounds of that will be water. And then you're going to do one weekend out with friends and you're going to gain it all back. Then you're going to go into a depression. And then you're going to say, screw it. I'm going to just live life, gain 20 pounds. I know. It's this cycle.
And if I may just jump in here on that, is that the way I encourage people about that, especially fitness and their life goals, health goals, and so on, is aim for the end, man. Aim for way down. If you aim for next month's wedding, you're not going to make it.
Totally.
Or the graduation, or to fit in that dress. Stop. Please stop doing that. Aim for the end of your life. And also, let's focus on being happy right now. Let's be happy right now and understand what we're doing and why we're doing it and where are we going here. Not until I think I turned 50 did I start chunking my life out into decades. So, all right, 60, here we go.
Yeah.
And now I'm close to 60. I'm already aiming for 70, right? I'm going, okay, 70, here we go. I can't even believe I just said that. I can't even believe I'm there. But you've got to think way out. And what effect is this all going to have on me down the road? And am I happy about the changes and the things that I'm making right now? Am I happy about it? Yeah. And can I manage these things today and tomorrow and next month and next year? Can I maintain it? Find the things you can maintain.
So true.
And just keep doing them. It's like watching grass grow. You don't really notice it until you go back a month and go, oh, wow, there's been some changes here, right?
Absolutely. If someone could do 5 minutes of exercise a day, 7 days a week for a year, they're going to most likely at that year mark want to do and continue to do more versus someone that starts a 30-day crazy program for 90 minutes a day. Not going to work, Peter Attia, I don't know if you follow him, Dr. Peter Attia, he talks about the decade of marginal decline. So it's basically like that our last decade, right? Like, how can we make decisions now that will improve and decrease the rate of decline in that last decade? And it takes a lot of smart choices now. I say now, being anyone that's listening now today, to really put that vision out, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 30 years from now. What does that last 10 years look like? Are you in a, just totally sick and in a rut and bad shape? That's, they're going to be rough. But if you make choices now, that last 10 years of marginal decline can be great and much better. So yeah, I like your long-term perspective on that.
Yeah. And gosh, I don't even know what else you have on your list of questions here, but I got to take this a step further because it's obvious the physical issues. We can see what we look like. We can see how we feel, how we're responding to the world and so on, and how we're handling our stress and stuff like that. The emotional part of our life is so delicate and important and misunderstood. And I don't even mean by your spouse or other, I mean from yourself, misunderstood from yourself. What do I want? What do I really want? Not what others want for me or what I think I should want, but what do I want? And my goodness, when you start to think like that, I mean, watch out because, your life starts changing. And of course, it's complex. Children, jobs, spouses. Oh my gosh, it's so complex and it's very deep and very a big tangle, around exercise and around money and around food. Oh my goodness. So, yeah.
Yeah, you just said when you go down that hole, watch out. And that is a true statement because you're working with many, many people, as are we. And when you get into those conversations, those are great. And they are, I think it's as important or more important than training, right? Like if you're not happy and you're miserable and like you have no life goals, you hate Mondays, like, running a 5K faster probably isn't going to improve your life a lot, but you go down those rabbit holes and ask those big questions. For me, for example, and most of our listeners know this, like I got out of college. I got a really good job doing insurance and fraud investigation. I was moving up the ranks. I was in a cubicle with LED lights, and like I was just really, really miserable for 3 years, like real miserable. And I took a huge chance. I said, look, I love coaching athletics. I love health. And I love being my own boss. And I started my company at 26, and here I am at 42 with a full-time staff and a podcast, and we've changed locations. So I had to answer those questions, and thankfully I did it pretty early,
Right.
that I would look around the office and say, I don't want to be you.
I
Or
know.
you, or you, or you.
Right.
And thankfully, and I'm not judging them. Like it
I
is what it
understand.
is, and whatever you want your life to look like. But for me personally, it was really apparent that this is not the place for me. And then I set the whole stage with like, well, what's the worst that can happen? I fail. I'll just
Right.
go get another job.
Right. I know. See, you just mentioned it, and thank you so much for sharing that, because please talk about it. Please tell people how you made it happen and so on. And the trouble is that most people are older than that. They're like your age or so, and they're having these questions like, I don't know if I like my life, and it's harder. You don't have as much energy as you did when you're 26. You didn't have as much time to fail at things, because you do,
Yep.
you know. But one of the keys, the additional keys, and we're naming all the keys, by the way. The other key is the opportunity to live a creative life.
So true. Yes.
Every day you wake up, you
Yes.
have to be creative.
Yes.
Every day
Yep.
to be you.
Yep.
You have to be creative. What am I going to do today? And you have to imagine what you want to happen. You had to create the questions and the business to reach out to me and to others and so on. That creativity keeps you alive, keeps you going, keeps you interested.
I define that as what I say, something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
for me, it needs to be a new challenge, a new project. I have to be learning
Yeah,
all the time,
absolutely.
whether it's hunting or gardening or hobby farming or fitness or heart rate variability, right?
Right.
Something all the time. And it's sort of freaky weird. Like, I don't know, it just works for me. If I'm not learning or engaged or pursuing something, I'm depressed.
Yeah.
And I don't mean clinically depressed.
I
So
know what
for
you mean.
people listening, I'm not there, but I need to be engaged. And for me, that is my that's my therapy for sure.
And you know what it leads to, I think, is that it creates a person who is interested in solutions
Yeah.
as opposed to blaming.
Yes. Yeah. It's true.
You're interested in actually finding out solutions.
Yeah.
How can I make this work?
Yeah.
You
For
know,
sure.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
And
I mean,
when you think along those terms, you find yourself not complaining, but having more of a task oriented mind.
absolutely.
And when you can, I'm famous for my lists. I have lists for everything, but that's how I organize my mind, and that's how I sleep really good at night. But I like that piece. It's a task, it's a goal, and we're orienting towards something that makes sense for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's I have some really specific training questions here. I want to learn from you. You know, when you're looking at an athlete swim, bike, run, do you have ratios like um so you had the swimmer, you mentioned the real good collegiate swimmer, he was poor at running, like let's take Olympic distance just because that's I've done a handful of those. And so what are you looking at? Like if I were to come to you and say I'm doing 35 minutes in the water, 75 on the bike, and 50 on the run, are you as a coach really specializing in triathlon, are you looking at like a balance or things that are out of balance, or how are you looking for holes there? Like what ratios, I guess?
Depends on what they bring to me, the athlete, right? If the athlete's already a runner, I would really bring up the volume on the bike. They might have to learn to swim too, but the bike is where they're going to make the biggest damage quickly.
Okay.
And that will satisfy their ego and things like that, that they want to
Sure.
have success quickly. And that would guarantee that they'd want to come back for a second try, like
Mhm.
you did,
Mhm.
right? You
Yep.
wanted to beat your time.
Yep.
So I would do that. But in general, if you're looking for ratios and numbers, I really think that for Olympic distance, a person needs to cover 3 runs, 3 bikes, and 3 swims per week. It requires Olympic distance requires you to be good at all three.
Yeah.
It really does. It's going to challenge you. It's 1,500 meters, 0.9 of a mile. That's some distance, right?
Mhm.
For a
Mhm.
person who's new to triathlon, 24.8 miles. Not many people just can ride that right from nothing.
Mhm.
So they got to be better at that. Plus, if the course has hills, and then the running, of course, we know is the hardest of the three, because especially because it's last, they have to be able to run somewhat. So 3 miles, 3 miles, 6 miles is the minimum that
Mhm.
I'd recommend for someone doing Olympic distance. Someone who's a little bit better, I'd say 6 miles, 6 miles, 9 miles, including some speed training, for
Mhm.
instance. And then
Mhm.
on the bike for this, a person I'd recommend 20K, 20K, at least 40K. Someone
Wow.
who's a
Okay.
little more gifted, I'd say 40K, 40K, 56 miles.
Wow.
Yeah. And then in the swim, 1,500, 1,500, 2,100 at least, or no, beginners like 1,000 to 1,500, 1,000, 1,000, 1,500
Sure.
minimal. And then if they're a competitive type, then you're talking at least 21, 15, 15, 2,100 to 3,500. There's a lot more volume there that can happen for
So
Olympic
that so
distance.
that so that if I'm understanding you correctly, Mark, that's 9 training sessions or blocks a week.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm
Yeah.
not doing that. Wow. And
Yeah.
okay. So, you know, and we don't need to analyze my training, but I'm doing something very similar. I'll do one intense speed day where I'm working VO2 max, lactate threshold, something along those lines, and that's 6 to 8 miles. And then I'll do my 3 and 3 or a 5 and 3 on the run. So that I've got that pretty dialed, and I'm still getting faster. I only bike one day a week, more or less just because I'm bored. And I don't know. I know it's probably a weakness. So I'm doing 120 mile. It's fairly intense. I'll do some intervals and whatnot, but 15 to 20 miles. And then I'll do, because my swim is so much faster than the other two, I'll do, probably 2 to 3 swims a month. And but then I strength train 1 or 2 days a week, so I'm training almost every day something.
Right.
But yeah, so that's a great breakdown. Thank you for that. Wow, that's a lot more biking than I'm doing and swimming.
Yeah. Well, the swimming sounds like you're fine. Like you could get away with doing one day of swimming all the way to race day, literally.
Yeah.
But the biking's where I would recommend that you bring those up. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because in the pool I'll swim a mile in 32 minutes in the pool.
Yeah.
I don't. That's again just a few sessions a month. But the bike, I get on that bike, man, and the people that bike, they are gone.
Yeah.
And last year I did the Whiteface bike hill climb.
Oh my
It's
God.
okay. It's 8.3
Yeah.
miles, 3,500 feet, I think, and it's obviously all uphill. It's Whiteface Mountain. Wow. I show up with my, $500 steel chassis bike, and and everyone there was, I don't say everyone, 90% of them were bikers.
Yeah.
I finished. I never got off the bike. I did it, I think, in an hour 21 or 23. But I was almost in the last place. Like the winner did 58 minutes or something. Like
Yeah.
so I am, but you're right. I can see why I'm not strong on the bike. Like if you're recommending 20K, 20K, 40K, and I'm doing what, 30K once a week, I could see there's my hole.
Definitely. Yeah.
All
You're
right.
going to become a lot better cyclist. I have a feeling.
What? Yeah, I've got to do it. I've got to find the time, and I've got to not care about being bored.
Right.
All right, so let's go on to my next question with training. So do you ever integrate specific heart rate zones like lactate threshold, zone 2 base training, VO2 max? Like, do you ever integrate that or don't you go that far?
Well, I realized when you were reading from my resume that I need to update that because I've actually now been coaching for 28 years, and I used to coach with heart rate only.
Mhm.
Back in the day was everything, and things have changed big time since then. And so what I discovered when I was training people with heart rate was that there are mostly two types of athlete. There were high heart rate athletes and low heart rate athletes. And the way that I know whether they're high or low is I ask, what's the highest heart rate you've ever seen in your life? And if a
Mhm.
person says, I think I saw like a 210 once,
Yeah.
whoa, they're definitely high heart rate.
Yep.
If a person says, oh, I've never been able to push my heart rate higher than 173, low heart rate,
Mhm.
right? So once I understand that, it tells me a lot about who they are, how they're built as an athlete, whether they're slow twitch or fast twitch.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so that right away. And then I say, what sports did you play in school?
Yep.
Basketball, baseball, football, whatever. Or did they run cross country? Or what track events did you do? 100 meters, 200 meters. Ooh, or I ran, the 3 mile back in the day. It was 3,200 yards or whatever it was. So that tells me a lot. And so these days, when they come to me, I ask that question to find out who they are. Um, and that clues me in. Then at that point, I don't insist that they train in certain ranges, but I use language like, let's go easy. And then they'll say, you mean zone 2? And I'm like, yes.
Gotcha.
So a lot of times I'm really kind of interviewing them. As I'm coaching people, I find out who they are, what they know and
Mhm.
what they don't know. So instead of me forcing all this tech stuff on them, I let it come out. I wait until it comes out in them. Because if they say, oh, should I train in should that be zone 4 or 5? And oh, yes, it should be. That's a hill day.
Yeah.
That's a hill
Okay.
day.
So,
Or
so you,
you're going to be at the track, right? We're doing
yeah.
intervals. Yeah,
So your programming almost dictates the heart rate for them, almost whether they know it or not. Um,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, I see.
The only thing I will say this though, I never recommend, and I mean this, never recommend that people run all out at their track workouts unless they tell me they're training for a 1 mile, right?
Sure,
If you're preparing
sure,
for the 1 mile, then we got to run pretty hard, right?
sure.
Or if they're going to set a new world record or national class record in the 5K, then we're talking about a different type of athlete. Depends on them, but really, even at that level, you want to train people that's faster than race pace, but not all out.
Oh yeah, sure.
Because the goal is to do
Yes,
multiple intervals faster than race pace, but
yes.
under control so that you have control of yourself. You know who you are when it comes
Mhm.
to race day.
Yeah,
You know when you're running too hard. And the
yes.
only way to find this out is to put yourself through the experience. You have to go through the experience,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's
Mm-hmm.
speed work or hills or riding your bike or
Yeah.
going
Th-
longer.
that's a really good point because I've interviewed and talked to probably an equal number of people on both sides of the spectrum, like some really advanced people that do no heart rate tracking or nothing. They just know their body really well.
Absolutely.
And then other people that are all about heart rate all the time. And then they learned their body through that. Right.
Right.
And so that's me. I love the zones and I've got the Polar H10. Like but now I don't need it as much. Like if you tell me we're doing 800-meter repeats for 10 sets with a 2-minute rest in between,
Mhm.
I'm fine now. Like I know I've done that enough. Same thing climbing a hill on a bike. I know where I am just based on the years now of that. But I'll tell you, for me, especially zone 2 and how beneficial that is going long and slow,
Oh, yeah.
that was an eye opener for me. And I think most people go too hard in zone 2, at least in my experience. So,
Absolutely.
my my zone 2 pace per mile is about a 10-minute 10:10. Okay. That's at a heart rate of 136 with a max heart rate of 184.
Yep.
And but I can run a mile in, I haven't tested in over a year, and it was 6:25, and it's significantly faster now. It may be sub 6 or close to that.
Right.
So it's just such a difference between all out effort in zone 2. So I find it helpful for people, especially with the zone 2. The intervals sort of sort themselves out because people are going to blow themselves out, right? Zone 2, you tell them to go 10 miles easy on a Saturday and they come back at like a 8:09 pace. It's like, I know you were in zone 4 the whole time just based on knowing you. And that wasn't an easy run.
No, that, I know you're not necessarily asking about this, but this is the biggest mistake that most people make. They run too hard on the track days and they run too fast on the slow day.
So true. So true.
There's
That's
not
a great point.
difference. There's not a big enough window in there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Are you on a hard stop here in an hour or no? Can we keep going?
No, I'm good. If you're
Okay.
good, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, this is this is great. So, all right. So have you ever had a VO2 max test done anywhere in your journey of training?
No, I never have. No,
Oh man. Okay.
no.
That would be, well, if you're ever interested, you could swing by here and we could test that. It's
Probably die. You
no,
don't want
no.
that.
No, the technology, Mark, has come a long ways. It is fascinating now, what you can learn from that. But yeah, so we're dabbling in that arena. I want to switch gears to something that I found very unique with your races. Is the faith side. So you talk to the racers. We're about to get into the water. Everyone's nervous. And then you give everyone an opportunity, to join you in a prayer, and you bless the racers essentially. Why is that important? Like, I've done a lot of races and a lot of events, and yours literally is the only one that we do that at. So why do we do that?
First of all, and I say this to the athletes, I'm going to do a prayer because I need it.
Sure.
I need it.
Sure.
My wife needs it. We're under a lot of stress, a lot of responsibility, accountability, fear, joy. We need help. And that's the best way I know to get it. I'm going to pray right now, because what it does is it takes the edge of ego off everything.
Yeah.
It brings the humility in and says, I'm not in charge here. I am not in charge. There's something greater than me that is in charge. And so I'm going to ask for help right now. I have to tell you this story. The first time I ever did that, which was back in 2011, I did a prayer at the beginning of the race, and I got crucified. Interesting word.
Really?
Some athlete said, that wasn't on the race agenda. I'm offended that you did that. You should have announced before the race, way before, in the race, pre-race instructions, that was going to happen. And I go, and at first, you're, oh my gosh, how could they feel like that? And I go, nope, they're right. So, because I didn't say, and this is what I always do say today, you do not have to join me.
Yep.
You do not have to join me. I do this. I like this. I need it. My wife needs it. If you would like to join us in a short prayer, just meet me right here and We'll do it. So that's how I changed it. And it's been great ever since, because I just announced it with all of my heart and soul that you do not have to do this with us. It's just something special I like to do. And if you want to join us, great. Otherwise, we'll meet everybody by the water. And sometimes it's only like 6 of us.
Sure.
And then other times it's, 200.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. And you touch each other and you gather up and you do it. And, it's just, I keep it ecumenical on purpose, because I just want to get that humility part in there. And boy, have we gotten great feedback in that regard. Huge, great feedback. Just like, thank you so much. That changed my entire day. I mean, you have no idea how it's going to affect people. And you know what? It affects me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And
think about like the number of people that have never been prayed for or maybe have prayed. And those pre-race nerves do get de-escalated for
oh
that
yeah,
30 seconds, I can tell you for sure.
yeah,
And I think like the two races I've done that you've hosted, there is no ego at the start line. Like I don't know, and obviously there's some very fast competitive people in that lineup. And there isn't. And I think I give you and your wife credit. You know, you set that tone where it's not really about that. And
thank you.
then you do the prayer. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was you shake every participant's hand
Yes,
before they enter the water, before the big go. I
yes,
thought that was really cool. Like there's a level of engagement and care there.
that's
And again, it's another piece of the pie that makes you feel connected. And you look them in the eye and you say, thank you for being here, something along those lines. I remember. And then it's game time, you know.
that's
So
right.
I like that part too.
Yeah, that's just something that has been a trademark of mine forever. I believe in getting to know everybody. I believe in them really knowing who I am. And for me, like you said, look them in the eye and let them know that I am grateful that they're there, that I do care about them and about their experience. I really do. And, and that's it.
Yeah.
You nailed it though. A pet peeve of mine is non-humble athletes.
Oh
I
yeah.
can't take it. I can't take it. They're not welcome around me. And the thing is, if they would just come down with their attitude, if they would just come down, I would love them greatly. I would
Right.
give them all of my love, but
Absolutely.
I can't when they're acting like that. I
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah.
and I mean, I still respect them and they could come race with me and stuff, but I have to say, the people who come, they feel that and they tone it down as much as they can,
Yep.
but
Yep.
mostly we've got great people racing with us.
You do.
Really, really great people who care, who love what we do, and that matters and really, really means a lot to me. That first of all, that you and others are noticing
Mhm.
means a lot. We're not just a machine.
No. No,
We're
I
not a
don't get I
machine
don't
of
get
racing.
that.
No,
Yeah, I don't get that feel. No.
no, not at all.
All right, so we're gonna wrap up here in a few minutes. I'm just curious. Do you have any crazy race stories you've witnessed throughout your career, like that really stand out, whether inspirational, success, or failure? Anything that is like, can't believe that happened.
Yes. So in my final Ironman, which is in 2017 at Lake Placid, my entire family and some dear loved ones were there, friends and family. And I came out of the water for the swim at Lake Placid, and I was running up the chute from the water's edge to go to the transition area. And I heard my wife and my sister screaming for me. And so I ran over to the side. I looked behind me to make sure I was good. And I ran over to the side and I gave my sister a kiss. I gave my wife a kiss. And then there was another person in line and I didn't know the person. I said, I don't know you.
Oh,
And so I, it's just so funny. I think this video is actually on our website. It's just a hysterical video to watch because I'm kissing them one by one. I love you. I love you. Oh, whoops, I don't know you. Sorry. That's just the first thing that popped into my head.
well, and you're disoriented too, right? Like at some level, in
Yeah.
between stages, things are
Yeah.
chaotic and stuff. Yeah, so you're like Mark's like kissing the whole line all the way down.
I mean, I'm not opposed to that. I would kiss him, but no, I can't kiss you. Sorry.
Sure. All right. So when you're 90 years old someday and you look back at all the races that you've hosted, the athletes and volunteers that you've met, what's one thing that's going to stand out? What do you think?
I was gonna say you're gonna make me cry, but it, the thing is, I just hope that when the day comes that I'm not here, that someone says that was amazing.
Yeah.
That was amazing. And the feeling of their tone and their feeling of their remembering will be there. And that's all I care about is that when I'm gone, that someone will just say, I can't believe that. That was so incredible. And that would mean so much to me. So now I'm working really hard to make that happen. I'm really trying.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job, Mark. Last question. What advice do you have for someone that's listening to this? They might be nervous and, or considering, doing their first run, whether it's a 5K or a 10K or their first triathlon. What advice do you have for them?
Well, I think the number one thing that's needed is they have to find someone who cares like you and me and will embrace them in their journey. And no matter what that means, there's a local woman, Rose Carr, I have to say her name. She takes people under her wings and literally shelters them all along their journey. And that is something that I will never forget in all of my life. She's just that way. She won't let you quit. She'll encourage you. She'll give you the right words in the right moment. And she's an ultra runner. And she's done triathlon. She did not do well in swimming and biking and running. And boy, she just keeps working at it. And, you got to find people like that who just will not give up on you no matter what's going on. You need those people in your life. And if you don't have that, you got to get them fast because there's too many people in the world who will not be there for you and they will try to drag you down. And I don't mean to get negative, but it's just a fact right now. And you got to find people who care about you, and help you.
Yeah, you need to be surrounded with like-minded people, and it doesn't need to be a lot of people. It could definitely be one person, right?
Yeah.
But you are your inner circle, right? So if you're hanging around with 5-10 people that don't get it or aren't supportive or drag you down, you're not going to optimize your potential. But you could create one relationship that genuinely cares and holds you accountable and gives you the proper structure. That'll change your life. I've experienced that multiple times.
Well, you recognized it when you were in that cubicle. You said, I don't belong here. And I'm going to choose to change it right now. And that's it. One person at a time, one job at a time, one dream at a time. You just got to keep going and aiming for the better way. Always.
Yeah. So, Mark, how can listeners learn more about your coaching services and your races?
Well, they can go to coachmarkwilson.com, but I highly recommend that they just call me directly and talk to me, and my number is 914-466-9214. That's my cell. You're not going to call here and get the secretary or get an answering service. You're going to get me, and that's really what I mean. Call me. I will give you 30 minutes of my time happily to express and reflect back to you whatever it is that they're needing. And I would tell them exactly what I think they should do, whether they hire me or not. I'm going to give them my opinion about what I feel and see from what they're bringing. And I tell my wife this, she's a witness that whatever they bring to me is what I give to them.
Yeah.
Right? What they put in is what I put back. And that's it. Yeah.
Well, that is generous. So for people listening, take Mark up on that. You get 30 minutes of a great conversation with a great guy. Mark, I thank you for today. I can't wait to see you here in July. And hopefully I cross the finish line on that Delta Double.
229.59
for
the Olympic.
For what?
For the Olympic. 229.59.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what you want me to go as compared to last year for time.
Yeah. I know you can do it. If you up your cycling.
Yep.
It'll happen.
Yep. All right. Well, I'm going to write that down right after this. Mark, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Joshua. I really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting our sponsors, Native Path Supplements and Lombardi Chiropractic. Your support helps us to bring you 2 new episodes each month. See the show notes for more details and a nice discount from our sponsors. Thank you, and see you next time on the Co-Movement Gym Podcast.